Picture this. You're 30 years old, a burgeoning music executive. You have the literal dream job of so many guys your age. And you've worked your ass off to get here. You've climbed the ladder, cultivating relationships and widening your network in LA to get to where you are today. And where you are is pretty friggin' cool. Yeah, it's the mid-2000s, and you're working with acts like U2, Coldplay, and Tim McGraw. You're hobnobbing with celebs and industry titans, drinking champagne in the back of limos, a VIP lanyard around your neck, ready to slip through the backstage entrance at yet another sold-out concert. Until one fateful Monday morning, you wake up feeling somewhat out of sorts. At first you think, maybe food poisoning? No big deal. You just need a brisk shower. You'll get dressed, go to work, and all will be well. Right? Wrong. You feel a tightening in your chest. Your pulse starts racing. And before you know it, you're running out of the house, into the streets, in a sheer state of panic. You somehow stumble into your car and start driving, but you don't know where to go. You think, am I having a heart attack? Except heart attacks don't go on for hours, right? If you've been among our loyal listeners, you must know by now that things are almost never what they seem. Behind the bright, shiny exteriors are the real stories. And that's why we're here. We dig deeper into personal truths, the realizations and revelations that lead us to discovering our best lives in gratitude. Our guest today, Matthew Emerzian, is the founder of Every Monday Matters, an organization he founded after experiencing the whole scenario I just mentioned. Because we all feel anxiety and despair sometimes. But so often, we sweep it under the rug until it's too late. On today's show, we sweep the cobwebs out into the light. Because if you're experiencing those feelings too, it's time to talk about them. Because you matter, and we're all in this together. Matthew Emerzian, today on the Gratitudeology podcast.
Will you walk through the fire? Would you ride through the storm? Will you walk on a wire? Will you save me if I fall? Will you break through the madness? Set us down where we're safe. I'll be right here waiting till you find me again.
Matthew Emerzian, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You are one of my favorite people on the planet. And we had been in Impact 11 for a while together before. Yep. One night we were at dinner, and then I wanted to know who you were. And I started diving deeper into your story. And what a story.
We all have one, don't we?
We all have one. As Matthew sits here across from me, I can't help but think of the first time I saw him. I had sat down for the opening dinner for an event produced by Impact 11, my professional keynote speaking development group. And in walked a very tall man with dark curly hair. And there was just something about him. He seemed magnetic. He's the kind of person who's larger than life, but also not intimidating. When he smiles, his eyes sparkle. And when you chat, he actually listens, a quality so lost in today's world, especially at industry events. I've come to know him pretty well in the keynote speaking world, but I realized in this moment, I knew nothing about his backstory. So tell me a little bit about little Matt. I want to hear what it was like growing up, and how did you end up in the entertainment industry?
Well, little Matt grew up in a town called Modesto, California. I joke actually in every keynote that I do, I start at some point I say, I grew up in this little town called Modesto, and I do it not because that really matters that much, but I want to see if anyone in the audience will react to it.
Yes.
And every single time someone reacts because they know about Modesto, California.
And why would Modesto, California get a reaction? Well, let's make a quick pit stop. If you've never been there, it has all the charms of small town America, but with a vibrant cultural life that can stand proudly besides major cities. It's home to Gallo Wine, with the largest winery in the entire world. It's no wonder that it landed the number 12 spot on Men's Health magazine's list of America's drunkest cities. Now, aside from Matthew, Modesto has another favorite son, George Lucas. You may have heard of him. Some dude who made a little sci-fi movie called Star Wars. But did you know that he actually celebrated his hometown of Modesto by writing and directing a movie all about growing up there? A big hit called American Graffiti, nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture and earning $140 million at the box office. And the town itself celebrates the movie every June with its Graffiti Summer Festival, when thousands of car enthusiasts come from all over to show off their antique cars. But if you were trying to recall where else you might have heard of Modesto, bonus points to everyone who remembered that on Christmas Eve of 2002, a woman named Lacey Peterson, who was 8 months pregnant, was reported missing from her home in Modesto.
Tonight on Dateline. On Christmas Eve, she vanished without a trace, a radiant young mother-to-be.
I just immediately, I knew she was missing.
Now the bodies of a woman and a baby boy have washed up on the California shore. Have police found the remains?
It was a major news story for months until the discovery of her and her son's remains in the San Francisco Bay. And guilt finally pointed squarely at her husband, Scott Peterson. Of course, that reveal came as a shock, especially for the people of Modesto, who never dreamed that something so horrible could happen in their otherwise perfect little town. Fortunately for Matthew, his family and his upbringing was an almost fairy tale-like dream.
I'm not making this. I grew up in a neighborhood called Sherwood Forest.
Okay.
So to get to my parents' house, you had to take Robin Hood, turn right on King Richard, turn left on Little John, and then turn right into Buckingham Court. Oh. And we were the last house at the end of Buckingham Court.
That's so cute.
That's where I grew up.
Okay, that's adorable.
Yeah.
And tell me about your family.
I mean, my family is amazing. I have an incredible mom and dad and an older brother. I always joke that my older brother was the golden child. They wanted 4 boys and they had me. And I was number 2 and mom said, that's it. But we just grew up in a very basic, wholesome neighborhood where we had a big park in the middle of Sherwood Forest, right by Sherwood Elementary, where we all went to school. And all of our friends just met in the middle from all sides. And, you know, we played. And there wasn't a lot to do there. So you had to be creative. We have to make up games. You know, I mean, I also played water polo and I have a lot of friends who are from Southern California. And, you know, for them, like, they had the ocean. And if there were waves, you know, they were set. If there was no waves, they were miserable. In Modesto, we had none of it. We had canals to swim in. We had orchards to party in. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it was a great upbringing. And to this day, I still call Modesto home. I mean, I've lived in LA for 37 years.
Yeah.
And when I go to LA, I say I'm going back to LA.
Yeah.
But when I go to Modesto, I always say I'm going home.
Sure.
And I've never realized, till actually a few years ago, that I've never changed that terminology. You know, coming out of undergrad, I started selling candy for M&M Mars. And my dad worked in sales for 47 years for Gallo Wine. My brother's the golden child doctor. And so I was the one to kind of follow my father's footsteps. But then I realized after 2 years, I didn't want to drive around in a station wagon selling consumer goods. So then I became a teacher. And then I started a swim lessons company in Beverly Hills. And then I became an ambulance driver for one day. First from Modesto, I got spit into LA to go to UCLA for college and then for grad school as well. Mm-hmm. And then coming out of that is when I was introduced to the music industry. Coming out of business school, I had 2 job offers. One was Deloitte & Touche, and then was Procter & Gamble. And I had to make a decision. I was on this crazy path of trying to find myself.
Got it.
And the honest God truth is I went to graduate school because, number one, I had to get my parents off my back. Yeah. And number two, I thought maybe I would meet someone in grad school that inspired me to find a career path that I thought made sense. The truth is, I was not inspired in business school at all. Nothing against the school. I just thought it lacked entrepreneurship. I lacked creativity. I wasn't looking to just get a better job. Again, different strokes for different folks. And so when I came out of business school and I had these job offers, I had to make a decision. I mean, I knew if I went back to mom and dad and said, listen, I'm not going to take either of these jobs because the packages were incredible, I was going to be in trouble.
But no matter how tempting those offers were, they just weren't enough to convince him. Oh no, our Matthew from Modesto clearly had to march to the beat of his own drum, or rock and roll drummer, as it were.
And it just so happens that my best friend was the lead singer of a band that was signed to Sony Records, and John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin just produced their album. And so they called me over to their apartment in Brentwood for Monday Night Football, which entailed them bringing out some beer, ordering Domino's pizza, bringing out this other stuff that used to not be legal, now it is. And they got me nice and primed and ready and said, listen, the reason why we have you here is because we want to know if you'll be the manager of our band. And it was like, that was one of those aha moments in life. Like, this is it. Like, I'm going to be a band manager. And we signed a Domino's pizza napkin that Matt Emerzian is now the manager.
That was your contract?
Yeah.
Got
that was
it.
our contract. And I turned down my job offers. And so here we go. And now I'm a band manager in LA. And so, the truth is I loved being a manager. I like coaching. It's, as an athlete my whole life, again, I played water polo for UCLA. We won a national championship. Like, I've always had coaches in my life or was coaching people. So I love that dynamic, and I'm also not musical at all. And so to take people that have such a talent and try to help develop them beyond what they saw possible for themselves. And U2 was always my favorite band in the world. And I'm like, I had a chance to meet the band. I had a chance to meet Paul McGuinness, their manager. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be the next U2. I'm going to be the next Paul McGuinness. And so, I put artists to work. And I know that you know this because of your family. Like, there's a lot of people in LA that say, I'm a musician. And it's like, okay, well, how often do you rehearse? How often do you play a show? Oh, I rehearse like 3 times a year, play 1 show a year. It's like, okay, so I'm 3 rehearsals away and one show away from calling myself a musician.
Right.
And so, no, we're going to work. And so I put artists to work. And it just kind of caught on. And all of a sudden, I had this music management company in LA. I mean, the truth is my office was recording studios and the Sunset Strip, the Whiskey, the Viper Room, etc. And then I heard about a gentleman named Robert Kardashian.
Yes, that Robert Kardashian, father of Kim, Kourtney, Khloe, and Rob, and deeply involved in the litigation of one of the most famous cases of all time.
And because of my age, I thought Robert was just an attorney on the O.J. Simpson trial. What I later learned is actually, even in that trial, he wasn't really an attorney. He and O.J. were just best friends. And so, but he owned a very successful music marketing company. And my thought was, if I can get to Robert Kardashian, and we're both Armenian, so that was like my in, that I was on the streets finding talent, right? I was kind of sourcing what's hot out there. And Robert had all the relationships to the labels, and we can create like a farm system together where we're grooming talent, getting them signed, and spitting them out into the world. So I got a meeting with him, and he didn't like any of the bands I brought with me on CDs.
Of course.
But he did like me. And so he offered me a job as a senior vice president of his music marketing company. And that's a job I said yes to. Working for Robert was great. I mean, I love that man. I still miss him to this day. He was such a good human. And it was also fun because, Kim and Khloe and Kourtney all worked there too. Yeah. So I knew them. I mean, I helped.
How old were they at the time?
I think Kim was around 22 or 3. She had just gone through a divorce with her first husband, Damon Jones. He was the producer for Britney Spears. But I basically wrote Robert Jr.'s essays for his college applications.
That's amazing. That's
so to go way back and, for better or for worse, their paths went the way that they went. But I knew them, especially when there was a bit more, I think, of an innocence and a purity to these young kids who, they were savvy. They always were savvy. They always saw something big for their lives. And and to be a part of that, and to, in some ways, be welcomed into the family by their father, which is a very, sanctuous place to be, and to be able to be a part of these kids' lives was special to me. Working for Robert, I was just full of gratitude. I was full of gratitude. I felt like the luckiest dude ever. I felt like I got the biggest break ever. And then there was the projects I got to work on. So now I'm working on projects for the biggest bands in the world. And that was just, awesome. And my whole life, I've realized the highlights of my life. I got to work at World Cup Soccer when I worked for M&M Mars, because Snickers was a sponsorship. I remember the first time I saw U2 play on their first Joshua Tree tour in the 80s, and I just watched what music could do. And then when I came down to see UCLA for college is when the Olympics were in Los Angeles. So I saw the Olympics. So I saw how things like sports and, whether soccer or Olympics or music had this way of bringing people together on a global scale that was bigger than any force I'd ever seen growing up in Modesto, California. And then to actually be so close to these things, like where I'm at a U2 concert and I'm standing with Bono's wife holding their 2-year-old son. And it's like, okay, how did I go from the 80s of watching this band and having it change my life as I turned around the entire stadium and watched people sing every word, even in the nosebleeds, to now I'm here, I'm holding his son, standing by his wife. I don't really know even how it happened, but to your point, it's like, you just show up every day, right? Even as you coach people, you just show up.
I can tell you from my own experience, that celebrity lifestyle can be all kinds of amazing, but at the same time, it can also warp your sense of reality. When I started working in PR while I was still in college, I worked for some of the top PR people in New York. Lizzie Grubman, Peggy Siegel, Susan Blonde. If you were around in the 90s and the early aughts, you'd know them all. I remember in my early 20s working the red carpet with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, the legendary music producers, and doing the PR for Hot 97 Summer Jam, a huge concert where I was doing all of the backstage PR, and I'd walk into the celebrity trailers where it's like Snoop Dogg and Eminem, and you just get this out-of-body moment where it's like, what am I doing here? How cool is this? But I can also identify with the fact that as you start to believe that this is your reality, the pressure of that work starts to mount. So even as I went through my own Sex and the City phase of Manolo Blahniks and Knocking Back Cosmos, I still ended up in rehab. And without knowing it, Matthew was going through something similar, being swallowed into the razzle-dazzle of celebrity life.
I think what started as this crazy, someone innocent, someone like, oh my God, Matt has the best stories to tell kind of experience, it turned into, oh wow, I kind of like this, and I kind of feel pretty cool in this industry, and check me out. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, like, success, like how I define success started to change. That definition started to morph a little bit, right? And before I knew it, again, I was raised by a great family, but the slippery slope, got me, and I started to change. And my definition of success was, in some ways not the most righteous thing, or really not what matters most in hindsight, but at the time, it felt amazing. I mean, I've always been an achiever in some ways, even as a kid, whether it was in sports or school, or I've always worked hard, and, I don't want to be a slouch. And so I think in the music industry, part of the challenge was the better you were at doing it, number one, the more money you made, but number two, the more fame you got, right? And so then it's the red carpet, and then it's all the celebrity part, and then it's, which I say this all the time, and I'm not proud to say it, but like it's, staying single and just being a jerk, to be honest with you, and that kind of entourage, show lifestyle, kind of like, okay, this is freaking cool.
Yeah,
we're having a great time.
But just as Matthew was feeling all cool and riding high, life was slowly, but ever so surely, pulling the rug right from underneath him.
Well, one thing really quickly is that at one point in my career, I did work in PR, and the project they assigned me was called Bombshell Poker. So I was supposed to help hot chicks learn how to play poker and
my
beat
God.
men in online poker. So I think what happened is I started noticing in moments that things felt off. And let me say, I never got into drugs. I smoked marijuana here and there, but like I've never tried cocaine. I never got into any of that stuff. But I started noticing moments where I just felt a little off. Where I'd be at some celebrity's pool party, and I'd look across the pool, and I would see some dude probably in his 60s, and I'm like, now, am I going to be that guy one day with this trajectory for my life? And I didn't notice those things at first, but I started to notice them. And then I was in Las Vegas for an event, and I think in hindsight, I had my first panic attack, but I didn't know what it was. And I just kind of had a few more whiskeys and kind of just let it go away.
But what Matthew was able to drink away the first time would come back to haunt him just a few weeks later.
But it was a Monday morning, eventually, where I woke up. Something was way off. I didn't know what it was. My food poisoning, am I having a heart attack? Like something was just weird. But I was just like, okay, just white knuckle this thing, get in the shower, get dressed, get your shoes on. And I was able to take these baby steps forward until all of a sudden, like whatever the force was that was coming was just so overwhelming that I lost it. And I remember I went running out the front door, and I just went running down the street, and I didn't even know where I was running to. I don't know what I was doing. It was completely like out of body experience. I ended up running back home and getting in my car. I called my mom and dad. I said, I'm coming home, which is a 6-hour drive. I wanted to get to see them. I got in traffic, and all the traffic stopped. I freaked out in traffic. I drove through the center medium of the freeway, went back home. I called my doctor, drove straight to the doctor's, and it was just out of control. Like I was scared. I was crying. I was sweating. Like everything was just a blur. My vision was narrowed. It was the scariest moment that I've ever experienced.
The doctor told him he had had a severe form of a panic attack. He was diagnosed with chronic anxiety disorder and depression. To clarify, a panic attack in itself isn't fatal, but it is debilitating. The most common symptoms would be sweating, rapid heart rate, chest pain, and shortness of breath. And it is likely the overwhelming fear that makes matters worse. According to the National Institute of Health, the real danger may be associated with an increased risk of suicide.
Yeah, when I learned it was a panic attack, I think / just breakdown, full breakdown. I was super scared, man. I refused any sort of medication at first because I didn't believe what the doctors were saying. Oh, I'm gonna be fine, and I can tough this thing out. But then I went home, and it didn't get better. It kept getting worse. To where finally I was at the doctor's the next day. And at that point, I started having thoughts of taking my own life. And for whatever reason, for me, it was going to look like getting my car up to 100 miles an hour on the freeway, just yanking the wheel, because my life shut down. And hey, to that point, part of my healing journey that we'll get to is I had to surrender the fact that I'm the one that got me here. And, I had to own that. And it was my choices. It was the way I was assigned to live. It was the things I was prioritizing. That was on me. And clearly I wasn't making good choices. So then that surrender allowed me to have someone come into my life in the form of a therapist, who I call my expensive friend. Hindsight is pretty awesome. And at this point I was 31 years old. And I think a couple things. Number one, I had a story for my life, how I thought it was supposed to go. At 31 years old, according to my story, I would have been a much bigger success than I was. I would have been married and probably had 1 or 2 children. I saw this path for my life. And at that point in time, I was not as successful as I thought I should be. I was far from married, right? And I think even like people in my family, like, is Matt ever going to settle down? I kind of started feeling some of that pressure. A nickname for anxiety disorder is the people pleaser disease or the nice person's disease. And I realized I got so interested in making sure I was impressing people, and never saying no to anyone except myself. So control, I think control was a lot of it for me, wanting to always be in control of my life and the outcomes.
And Matthew learned that even with the best laid plans, things can easily slip from your control.
My favorite band that I worked with, where, we signed a massive record deal, and about a month before my breakdown, it turned out to be this huge legal mess with the label. So there were some things. The night before that Monday, I actually went on a blind date. I never talk about this. I went on a blind date with a woman that my mom's best friend set me up on. And everyone's like, okay, Matt, this is going to be the one. This is the one. She's perfect. Within 5 minutes, I was like, okay, she's not the one. And so I drove home from that, like, dejected. And so there were enough little things, adding up over time. And I've talked to my parents, and I don't blame them for anything, right? Of course. But yeah, in some ways, it was too perfect. Yeah. It truly was. Yeah. And I think I write about it in my book. I wish that at some point someone would have said, hey, Matt, life has a warning label too.
Totally.
It also has heartbreak and fear and loss and hopelessness and, those other things. And in the way, I'm a very visual person. So if the majority of my life, if like this was like life is perfect and this is like complete despair, I lived most of my life like in this 80%. I didn't know anything about that other 20 or 10 or 5%. And I think once I had my breakdown, that's when, for the first time, I saw that remaining bit and what is possible as a human to experience. It's completely changed the way I see people forever. Like, my level of empathy and compassion now is through the roof, because I never truly got what it was like to hit rock bottom until I did.
So tell me a little bit about your therapy.
Yeah. So obviously the therapy started with, crisis management, basically. Like, we had to stop my ship from sinking. So a lot of internal work. I think the second phase of my therapy was like looking at this world around me, my relationships, both professionally and personally, what was working, what wasn't working. And there were some really hard conversations that had to be had, and there were some relationships that had to end and things like that. But then the final phase of my recovery, I came in one day and Denise said, I want to give the rest of this journey a motto. And she said that until you know what it means to live a life that's not about you, you're never going to truly feel better. And I say something very similar to what you said. It's like, okay, I'm kind of a narcissist. I work in the most narcissistic industry in the world. I have days where I want to take my own life. And you're telling me it's not about me? Right. Which is kind of narcissistic, right to say.
Right.
But yeah, I was like, what am I doing here? Why am I paying you? And she's like, okay, just trust me. And she started talking about this coming Saturday. It's like, what are you doing Saturday? I don't know. I'll probably just laying around. I don't know, doing whatever. She's like, no, you're actually going to go out and feed homeless people. And then next Saturday, you're going to paint over graffiti. You're going to pick up litter. And every single Saturday, I would go do this thing that wasn't about me. And it was that repetition, this once a week repetition of doing this. And picking up litter kind of became my jam. I don't know why, but I'd be out in LA and everyone's asleep, and I have my rubber gloves on, my trash bags, my belt loops, and I knew the Meals on Wheels people, the dog walkers, and I'd be out just picking up litter. And before I realized it, I found so much peace. And it was like a warmth in my heart that I remember feeling. And one Saturday I was out picking up litter, and eventually people started joining me. I made t-shirts, like the LA Street Team, which I never talk about that, but it became a thing, But I was out picking up litter one day, and somebody's called me to go to a celebrity's house for a party. And I said, guys, I'm out picking up litter right now. I'm cool. And it was like, okay, first of all, I just outed my secret. And I'm sure you know plenty about secrets, which, turn out could also be our sickness. But I was still I wasn't very public about what I was going through when I was in the heart of it. But secondly, this is what Denise meant. Like by doing things that weren't about me, I actually found myself again. And it was these simple picking up litter, like, planting a tree, reading to elderly people at a community center. And it changed my life, forever.
It's so friggin' powerful.
It's
you know
wild.
how powerful
Yeah.
it is. There's somebody listening to this right now.
Yeah.
That this is exactly what they need to hear to change their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's gonna. So you're picking up litter, you're doing your once a week exercise, you're changing. At what point do you decide to make the leap from that one industry to create what you created next?
Well, so I got the idea that I was going to write a book. And I called my good friend Kelly and I said, Kelly, I want to write a book. And her response was, Matt, you don't even read books. How are you going to write one?
Fair.
Fair. I said, great, but I'm going to write a book. And so I started writing this book. And while I was working for Bombshell Poker during the day, when everyone left, I would use their printer and I would start printing copies. And I was like figuring this thing out. And as I knew nothing about book writing or what that world looked like. But Tony Orlando, the singer, heard about my book, and he was best friends with the CEO of a major publisher. And next thing you know, this publisher called saying, "Hey, we heard you're writing a book, and we want to sign it." And
That doesn't happen to anybody.
ever. I'm like, okay, that's cool. They said, yeah, but you have to have an agent. So I'm like, 1-800 literary agent,
Right?
trying to find anyone who will take a deal that I already had, right? And so I ended up writing the book with my friend Kelly, the first book. It was in 2007. And then eventually the book came out. And about a month after it came out, I received a letter from a woman from Palm Springs. And she was shared a story about she was driving down the road and saw a car pulled over on the side of the road with a woman hanging out of the car. And so the woman who wrote me, her name was Darby, she pulled over to see if this woman was okay. It turns out that the woman was there to commit suicide, and she was going to jump in front of an oncoming car. And her husband was next to her in the car, and he had severe Alzheimer's, and she had just hit her max. And so Darby sends me this email, and at the end of it said, if it weren't for your book, I would have never pulled my car over. Now, that scenario wasn't one of the ideas that I put in my book for someone to go do, but when I got that email, I was like, okay, there's something bigger to this thing than I thought. And that book was called Every Monday Matters, 52 Ways to Make a Difference. And at that moment, I walked away from the industry. And I'm like, I don't know what this is supposed to be, but I'm going to make it a household name. I had a laptop, I had a book, and I had a MySpace page. Yeah, I mean, today, 18 years later, I've written now 4 books and I have a 5th one on the way. Every Monday Matters today is a nonprofit organization. And our mission is to create a world where everyone knows how much and why they matter. We serve over 3 million students nationwide with the free school curriculum. We help companies with their corporate culture and engagement. And we just launched a program into senior living communities.
That one really got me.
I know.
Because I think about people in senior living community. There's no sadder population.
I know.
And so many of them feel like they're just dumped there. What do you do with the seniors?
They are dumped there, sadly, in a lot of ways. So I was asked to keynote the California Assisted Living Association conference. And they asked if I would go tour a few communities before I did my keynote, which, we do our research, right? And I said, of course. And I noticed the programming schedule on the wall that they post every day. And it was like, bingo, ball toss, balloon making, it must have been like Legos. I'm like, what the bleep is this? These are humans, and they deserve dignity and to be seen and feel like they're heard and loved. And so I got this idea to take our school curriculum that we create. We have, thousands of hours of lesson plans that we've written, and adapt those into 1-hour engagements that can be done in senior living communities led by their activity director, just like they lead bingo. They could actually lead something over here that is very meaningful. And we tested it for about 6 months, and it was a huge success. And during that pilot, one of the seniors, the community members, she passed away. And her daughter, at her celebration of life, told us that because of Every Monday Matters, her mom knew she mattered before she died. And it was the greatest gift we could ever given. And, you know, it gets me every time I think about it. And so in some ways, we found ourselves in this place where we're serving kids in kindergarten, TK and K, and all the way to 12th grade. And now we're serving kind of end of life, and then with corporate kind of in the middle. And I just wanted to help people just feel good and to feel seen and heard and loved. And it became just a mission. I had this thought of, we have all these amazing nonprofits in the world solving for, you know, clean water and food, you know, food insecurity and shelter and illness, and you go down the list. But what if we solved for all of that, but we still didn't feel like we mattered? Or we still didn't have our mattering? Like, had we really finished the race? And to me, the answer was no, we hadn't. And so I started this journey, and it's been tail wagging the dog the entire time. You know, from the very beginning, MySpace page, and then Modesto Bee, my hometown paper, wanted me to write a newspaper column, you know, every Monday for their 38 readers, right? Which got syndicated through McClatchy across the country. And then as Forrest Whitaker buys my book and takes it to Obama's first inauguration and hands it to a woman named Oprah Winfrey. And so now I'm getting a call from Harpo wanting to do a partnership. And then teachers bought the book, they want school curriculum. And then companies bought the book, they wanted keynotes and leadership development and culture programs. And just all of these things just kept, it was never a plan. Yeah. It just started growing. And a story that I share, and I think you'll appreciate, like these real like key moments along the journey, is that there was a judge who was using my book as part of a restorative justice program with convicted felons. And she asked if I would come speak to them. And so I went to Northern California, and to the courthouse, found the judge in a courtroom. She kindly greeted me. And she said, "Are you ready?" I said, "Of course." And they opened up these side doors, and it walks in like 80 men and women in full prison jumpsuits with ankle chains around their ankles, waist chains, handcuffs attached to their waist chains. And they walked in and they sat down, and the judge is like, "Hey, everybody, well, here's Matt. He wrote the book. So Matt, why don't you go ahead and share?" And I sat there and I froze. It's like I've never seen another human being in chains before. It really hurt badly. And I mumbled for like 15 minutes, I guess, like, first of all, thank you for doing my book. You inspire me. I believe in second chances. We all make mistakes. Maybe you just got caught. We still have to own. Whatever I said. And at the end of it, I asked the judge if I could give them all a wristband that says "You Matter." We have these wristbands that say "You Matter" on them. And she said that I could. And so you can imagine putting a "You Matter" wristband on like 80 sets of handcuffed wrists. And it's like handcuffs, "You Matter," like this visual. And I was like, holy crap. And at the end of it, this convicted felon, he stood up. He's a huge guy. And he said, "Hey, listen, bro, can I talk to you for a second?" And I was like, oh no, this is not going to go well. Right. He said, "I want you to know that no one ever told me that I mattered my entire life. And that's why I ended up where I am today." And he just started sobbing on my shoulder. And it was this convicted felon that I wish I knew his name. I wish I knew how I could find him. But he's the one that made me realize that mattering was something far bigger than I thought it was.
How do you convince people they matter?
I approach everyone with this belief that everybody inherently matters. That, you know, there's 8 billion people in this world, and there's only one of you, Jamie. And so just that alone lets you know that there's only one combination of everything that is you. It's you, the good, the bad, the ugly of all that. And if you were not in this world, the world would be different. And that's a significant thing to acknowledge. And so there's this baseline that I have coupled with this idea of this compassion, because I know it's possible how someone could feel on a really good side or the really bad side. And so it changes how I show up with people. And for me, I think the biggest thing is just let people know, like, I see you. Whether that's, you know, I joke about this all the time, but I talk to people in elevators, and my wife thinks it's weird. It catches people off guard, but I'm gonna let you know, like, I know you're ignoring me. I know you're staring at your phone. I know that you're probably looking at the numbers above the door, but I see you.
When I heard this elevator story, I had to double click on that. Because do you want to know something? I've had some of the biggest names on this podcast, celebrities, 8 and 9 figure entrepreneurs, huge names in the personal and professional development space, the biggest and the brightest. But by far, among one of my most popular episodes was the one with Rabbi Sherry Hirsch. And one of her core Sherryisms was that she intentionally talks to people in elevators, taking the time to connect with them mindfully.
Elevators. So there's studies that have been done, and you can tell your friend, maybe she knows, that they put duct tape over the numbers and people stare at the duct tape. Or in a 2-story building where you can only go to the floor you're not already on, they'll stare at the 1 or the 2. It blows my mind. And so for me, it's, we define mattering as all of us embracing our role in creating a world where everyone feels seen, heard, and loved. And now, so that's where mattering starts for me. As you're going to know I see you, or that I hear you, or that I love you. Now, if there's more work to be done, I had more work to be done. You did too, the therapy and all the other things that we can get into. But at the base of it, it's I see you, I hear you, I love you, I value you.
How do you design these programs? Because I would imagine what you're saying to a kindergartner is so different than a sophisticated corporate employee than somebody who's 90, maybe plus years old.
Yes and no. So we have 2 kind of key elements to everything we do. One of them is understanding the world through the idea that I matter. So this is the stuff that is you and me individually, the good, bad, the ugly of that. Then there's the you matter, understanding that we are very powerful with our words, our thoughts, our actions, how we impact those around us. And then the third is the we matter. So there's the idea of I, you, we matter, these perspectives, so how to see the world at work, at home, whatever. The other side of it is we ask this question all year. I'll ask you, if there's one word we need more of in the world today, what is that one word?
If there's one word, one thing that we need more of in the world. I mean, everybody just wants to say love because it's the most obvious answer, right?
I thought you were going to say gratitude.
No, I mean, it's because when I think of this world right now, I'm so frustrated with the world we live in because it's so polarized and ugly and full of hate. So my first thought is like, if we could just find a way to soften the edges. And that to me feels like what you do when you love. It's irregardless of the other person's political affiliation or opinions, but love doesn't have those types of boundaries.
That's right. So we'll take that. We'll just say love. So we collect these words all year. And at the end of the year, we sit down as a team to see there are always values that come up and what comes up the most. I will tell you, like 15 years ago, it was, we need more fun. We need more silliness, more adventure. And now it's like love, grace, compassion. It's changed. And every year, I've done this for 15 years. What we'll do is then we'll pick these values and we'll pick 12 of them. And then the upcoming year, they will be the monthly themes of all of our programming.
That's cool.
So if you say love, I'm going to make something up on the fly. If you say Monday Gets Loving is for the month of June, whenever. And then each week is a strategy then to help drive more love into people's lives and ecosystems. And so in an I matter sort of way, you could say, maybe the strategy is use your words. In an I matter sort of way, you could say, do a self-check, do an audit on your self-talk. And you might realize that some of the words you use aren't very loving, and then maybe a you matter sort of thing is go out there and just give 5 people compliments today. And then a we matter sort of thing is you go bigger, right? Go out and get some friends or coworkers and go volunteer for a couple hours. It just really becomes this programmatic thing of here's a value, here's a strategy, here's the 3 perspectives, I, you, we, go make it happen. To your point, then take action on it. Go do something about it. And so that mechanism gets put into school curriculum that kindergartners can connect with, or it gets put into engagements that seniors can do in the senior living community, or that workers can do at work to drive engagement in a culture, etc.
So it sounds like you're encouraging people to do simple things that maybe they know they should do, but you're reminding them that in doing them, even the most simple ones, they can change their life.
That's right. And change the world.
And the world.
Yeah. And I'll tell you how that started, which is really random. When you're kind of a semi-professional trash picker-upper, you'll realize that cigarette butts get littered a lot. And at the time, whatever, 2005, before I wrote the book, I learned that in America, at that time, we smoked 300 billion cigarettes a year. And of those 300 billion cigarettes that we smoked, we littered 100 billion. And I realized that if you measure cigarette butt and connected it, that 100 billion cigarette butts go from LA to New York 337 round trips a year. And so every year we built the cigarette butt freeway across our country with our cigarette butt litter. Gross, first of all. Environmental issues, maybe. But what I realized is like, what if just one of those people didn't smoke and flick one? What if another one? Because what I do know is that every single person that flicked their cigarette butt didn't think it mattered. They just didn't think about it. Someone else can pick it up. It's not my concern, right? It's not my job. No big deal. But when you have a bunch of actions that are apathetic and unkind and that just don't care, and you add those up, you end up with something pretty powerful in a negative way or a positive way. And so my thought was, what if I could get enough people to pick up one piece of litter on the same day, or to plant a tree, or whatever thing that we wanted people to do? It was a game of small actions and numbers.
Totally.
Is really what it was. And to this day, that's what it's been.
Well, your book, obviously, this is your fourth?
That is,
This is your fourth book, You Matter, Learning to Love Who You Really Are. You know, from hearing you today, I bet there's a ton of people, myself included, who are going to want to run out and buy your books, and also to know what's next.
Yeah.
For you.
Well, for the people listening, that's the book I want them to buy. Unfortunately, they're out of stock on Amazon, but I have a ton of them, so people can get a hold of me if they like, and then I'll sign a copy.
To your website, which is?
Well, MatthewEmerzian.com. Yeah, and I'll gladly get them a copy and sign up for them. You know, right now it's I'm working on my fifth book, which I won't talk a lot about it, but I can't believe it's the fifth book. So I'm in the thick of that right this second. And I've been dabbling a lot in this idea of how to measure mattering. And so can we look at somebody who maybe felt this way at point A, and after a year or two or three or whatever programs that we have, like, can we show how that changes? It's a hard thing to measure, very hard thing to measure, but I've been really curious about that lately. And I mean, I'm with you at the same time. Like, sometimes it's hard for me right now to see too far down the line, because I'm sad about the current state of the world, not just America, but the world. Like, I feel like we are not doing a good job at being human right now.
Yeah, but it feels really hopeless, and it feels like, why even try to do anything, because nothing's going to change anyway. And in your context, that's not true.
No, we have to.
Each of us matters, and what we put out matters, even if it's just love and the right vibrational energy. And, you know, I don't know that I can go out in the streets and march to change things politically, because that does feel like, you know, bringing sand to the beach at this point. It's like very frustrating, but I can at least affect my own household, my community, the way I show up every day when I walk in and have interactions with other people. And I guess that's the best we can do.
Every single moment throughout our day, like, that's what we can control and that's what we can do. And, you know, I have this diagram that originally the I matter was the smallest circle, and then the you matter was the next circle outside of it, and the we matter was the big circle. And when I wrote this book, actually, it was going to press, and I woke up in the middle of the night. I was like, wait, the drawing's wrong. And I used it for like 12 years, this drawing. And I realized that it was more of a Venn diagram where the I matter, the you matter, and the we matter were of equal size. And it's where they all overlapped in the middle, where I thought us as humans were at our best. And to your point, you're not always going to be, you know, kicking butt in each part of them. You know, I know you pretty well. I know how hard you work. I would imagine sometimes your I matter might lack a little bit. because you're so busy with so many roles and responsibilities. A lot of people, like in education, in healthcare, and a lot of the service industries, their I matter tends to be lighter. So it's trying to find that balance. And for me lately, I've been trying to improve my I matter a little bit, because doing great work, doing projects like this podcast, trying to make the world a better place, can also, take a bit out of you too. And you have to pause, take care of ourselves as well. But although my books do end up in the self-help section of bookstores, but I'm not a fan of that, because again, it's like we can try to work on ourselves all day long, but back to what you said earlier, but what about serving others? So it's like this, it goes both ways kind of thing. We don't have to learn how to love ourselves before we can love somebody else. We can also love somebody else now, which might help us love ourselves more too.
So Matt, let me just ask you, because over the course of 5 books, right? Obviously, or maybe not obviously, you tell me, it sounds like the model is evolving, or is each of the books, do they serve a different purpose for a different population, or has the model actually evolved over time?
I think it's kind of like a yes and to that question. After my first book, I thought this could be like the next Chicken Soup for the Soul, where I'd have an EMM, for you name it, different audiences. And then what happened is, after the first book, I got so busy with growing and building the nonprofit, I didn't write my second book till 10 years later, which was like a 10-year anniversary of the first one. And then I did one for families during COVID, because families were really struggling to, what to do with this time being together all this time. And then I wrote this book, and it became story-based. And I love story, and the stories I get to share in that book. At the core of everything, I don't care who you are or what you do or what age you are. There is this thing here that we all have. It's this thing, that heartbeat that connects us all, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. That we're all trying to figure out this thing called life, right? And it's not easy for anyone. And so I feel like the more I go narrow and deep, in some ways, I have all the practical ways, okay, here's 52 things you can go do. Just go do it, and you're cool. But I want to get more into and here's why. And there are other programs. I mean, for example, in America, 21 veterans commit suicide every day. I've gone to Camp Pendleton to speak before. I see veterans sleeping in their parking lot because they don't know where to go. There are different rehab programs that have approached me to say, is there something we could do together as part of a rehab program, which I think would be super cool. And if there's anyone that's listening that's struggling, I would say just surrender and just commit to it and put in the work. And putting in the work doesn't mean going to 2 or 3 or 4 sessions. I'm commit to a year's worth. Go for a year's worth of therapy. Get that book and do it every single Monday. It's a journey. It took us a long time to get to these places in our lives, and it takes a hot minute to get to a better place. And so we can't short circuit everything, and certainly not our mental health and well-being.
Well, Matthew, I'm glad that you know you matter, and you matter to me.
Thank you.
And I adore you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. And I wanted to be here for a long time, so I'm finally here.
I'm so happy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Closing in on 2 decades, Matthew has been helping transform countless lives, not by some grand revolutionary idea, but through this simple concept of making people know, feel, and understand that they matter, that you matter, that we matter, that through every simple thing you decide to do, whether it's extending kindness to a stranger, picking up trash, voting, that you can make a difference. And that all these things, big and small, add up. Matthew's mattering mindset is a brilliant reminder to us all of the importance of human connection, community, purpose, and meaningful growth. If you want to learn more, check out his website and you can order his books there too. MatthewEmerzian.com. That's MatthewEmerzian.com. And you can follow him on Instagram at Matthew Emerzian, and at Every Monday Matters. That's all for today. Remember, if you liked what you heard, if it impacted you in any way, and if you think it's a message other people in your life might like to hear, I'd be so grateful if you'd give me 5 stars, leave a quick little comment. Those things really help. And share this podcast with your friends, either on social media or just word of mouth. I'm on a mission for us all to help each other focus on expanding our attention towards what's good in the world rather than focusing on what's bad, one person at a time. If we all did that, even to our own little sphere of influence, the world has the potential to be a much more radically awesome place. Stick with me, friends. I've got your back. We're in this together, and it's a great day to see the greatness in the day. See you next time. The Gratitudeology podcast is written, executive produced, and hosted by me, Jamie Hess. Sound design and studio production by Gotham Production Studios. Our theme song is Maze by Hills, sung by Nadia Ali. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Gratitudeology.